fucking great.
Oh, thanks for that, Greg. That's a great entry to episode 5 of the Wall of Champions. And
It's really good.
it's just started out, and Greg's like, "Oh, it's fucking great." Well, so we've turned it air blue straight away. So apologies to all the sub 18-year-olds who may ever watch or listen or indulge in this. I'm Webby, and joining me tonight, as you've already heard, is Blue Air Greg. Good evening, Greg.
You know how I'm doing?
Yeah, doing great. And also Luce, who's probably going to turn the air blue because he's playing Football Manager at the moment.
Oh, come on.
On topic, that's for sure. So, you know, we are actually going to talk about some Formula One. So, we'll get straight into what happened at the British Grand Prix, and I know
I hate to butt in. I reckon we keep it short. Kimi Räikkönen got robbed, and that was it.
Is that the theme of the races? Kimi Räikkönen got robbed.
Yeah, that's it. Let's just end it there, and we're done.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, and join us next time for the post-Hungary. So it was obviously it wasn't the most eventful race, in all honesty. It was probably one of the flatter races of the season, I guess. Apart from in the last couple of laps where Ferrari literally went bang twice, and mixed up the grid. And whilst it didn't really hurt Kimi in the end because he got third, and I know he lost second to Bottas, but it really did hurt Seb, and it means that going into Hungary, there's 1 point separating Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton in the championship. And just a little known fact for you guys: last year, going into the Hungarian Grand Prix, there was 1 point separating Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. So history repeats itself. But this time it's the real German who's leading the championship by a point, not the multicultural European Nico Rosberg.
Does that confirm Sebastian Vettel is the 2017 Formula One World Champion?
We'll wait till we get to after the Malaysian Grand Prix.
Is the Malaysian Grand Prix the last race?
No, it's just that it was the turning point last year for the championship.
Oh no!
No.
All right, let's get this started. So if we flick up the qualifying results, I know you guys can't see it, but if you remember what happened, it was this absolutely stunning lap from Lewis Hamilton to take pole.
I thought you were going to talk about Q1.
Stunning time from Lewis Hamilton in Q1.
No. Fernando Alonso.
Well, Alo, just a 37.5 to go fastest. The first time that Fernando Alonso had finished a session in P1 since Singapore 2014. 2014. That's right. Just amazing, and it was just amazing the crowd's reaction to Alo going P1. What do you think, Greg?
Well, he's the GOAT. He's a legend of the sport.
Well, he is a GOAT.
Yeah, well, no, I wasn't watching qualifying, but I was listening to it, and it was good to hear. Yeah, it was good to hear the crowd get fired up. I think most people appreciate that what Fernando can do.
I think more hardcore fans appreciate what he does and what he can do, as opposed to, I guess, some of the more casual fans of a certain driver or.
Yeah, I think the fans that I know they talk about it a lot, and I find it cliched and annoying because I think there's hardcore fans everywhere. But I guess a lot of the fans that go to Silverstone are the hardcore fans, so they appreciate a good result when they see it.
Yeah, so I just thought it was great. I thought it was ballsy for him to. He had nothing to lose in qualifying. He had I think a 50 million place grid penalty. I think he was due to start on the south coast of France.
Yeah, but then it became Normandy.
Yes, and then I'm pretty sure at one stage, I think at one stage he was due to start in Brisbane. So, you know, to at least he got a P1 in Q1 for his trouble, and reminded everybody just how good he was with the, there were other guys out there on the slicks at the time who got nowhere near it, but Fernando nailed it, and good on him. And it was just a reminder about, I don't think anyone forgets how good he is. I think we all just wish that he was in a car that was competitive, and this was a championship that involved him in the fray. But really, qualifying was all about Lewis Hamilton at the back end. He got pole by half a second. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it was a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, he just nailed it. He always seems to find something special at Silverstone over the last few years whilst Mercedes has been on top. He just looked he looked destined. He looked destined this weekend from the get go to just nail it. Really.
That's because he wasn't at London. That's why
he took that holiday.
He took that holiday and he just came back ready. Who can fault him?
Seb was worn out from walking the streets of London.
Right.
Well, that was certainly a big talking point going into the weekend, and I think I think of probably the 1,000 questions that Lewis Hamilton got in the lead up to the race, 990 of them were about his non-appearance at the F1 live event. What'd you make of that, Luce?
Well, he brought it upon himself, to be honest. Because obviously we've spoken about it in private a few times, and that he was sort of one of the advocates for something like this, and then here it is in his home country, and he just doesn't bother to show up. I could understand, like, if it was somewhere else, that okay, I might not go, but if it's in your home country, surely you show up. Surely.
Yeah, it was organised at short notice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Every other driver seemed to manage. So
yeah,
it's a tricky one, but I don't know.
Well, it didn't hurt him in qualifying. Took pole by country mile. Kimi Räikkönen put himself in the front row for I think the second time this season. Second time? I'm trying to think. Monaco is obviously on pole. But anyway,
maybe.
Yeah, but anyway, it was a good lap from Kimi to get in front of Seb, although I think Seb had issues on his final run. But Kimi looked pretty fast all weekend compared to Seb, so Silverstone's not generally a track that's worked for him in the past, is it, Luce? As a Kimi Räikkönen fan?
He's generally been okay there. He just hasn't had too much luck.
Yeah.
Around there. Like, 05, he had obviously absolute machine under him, and he even passed Fernando Alonso in the race, but because he blew his engine in practice or something like that, he down the field. He won here 10 years ago in 2007. He beat Hamilton and Alonso.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I guess looking further down, the disappointment of qualifying was Daniel Ricciardo had the car failure early in Q1, so he qualified last. He was actually fastest at the point when his car failed in the wet dry conditions. But the star apart from Hamilton was really Nico Hülkenberg, who got himself onto the third row. Continues to drive rings around his teammate who didn't get out of Q2. And
I read something today though, just to be fair to Jolene, that he might not have had the new floor.
He didn't have the new floor, but at the same time, like
it's still a bit of a gap. Yeah.
Well, the gap was 7/10 in Q2 between Hülkenberg and Palmer, and
I don't think a new floor is going to cover that.
No, and if you want the new equipment, mate, you're going to earn it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, Renault seemed to suit the Silverstone circuit well. We obviously saw Hülkenberg did well in the race, but they're still a one-car team.
But they might not have a bad car. Like, it's a very aero-dependent circuit.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Renault are not looking too bad.
They've been okay at the tracks where you need a little bit more aero, but Silverstone's it's a weird one because you need both aero and you need power, which is why Mercedes they were so good here.
Yep. All right, and moving down, Force India were 7th and 8th, so 4th best car again from Force India, apart from being beaten by Hülkenberg, but that's sort of where they've seemed to have leveled to be. Stoffel Vandoorne made it into Q3 again, so it shows that McLaren are creeping forward as the year goes on, and becoming semi-regular, at least, challenges for spots in Q3. Obviously, Alo didn't make it, but Fernando was on a hiding to nothing with his penalties, and I think I don't think he pushed too hard in trying to make it into Q3. And then you had the Haas behind of Grosjean. Palmer, as we said, missed out. He was P11. Bad weekend for Toro Rosso, because not only did they qualify 12th and 14th, they then had a coming together on the first lap. They sandwiched Alonso in qualifying. Williams, for the second race in a row after their upgrades, had a poor qualifying. So I know they came back in the race a little bit. Felipe got a point, but those upgrades since they've gone on a Williams car seem to have sent that car backwards over one lap. What'd you make of that, Greg?
Yeah, I don't know actually. I mean, it's it'll be similar to Austria. Well, is Austria a very engine or aero dependent circuit?
Engine.
It doesn't.
Engine.
So I guess I don't know. I'm really not sure what to make of Williams. But
you need to be aero efficient around that track as well. Like I reckon it's a deceptive track for aero.
What's that? Austria.
Austria, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Williams were good with aero efficiency, so I don't know.
I think it's
explain it.
Yeah, I think that the fact they've gone to two relatively that rewards a good engine, particularly Austria. But I think it indicates that their car is not working at the moment.
How did they go in the race? I completely forget.
They were 10th and 13th, 10th and 12th if I remember right, or 10th and 11th. But yeah,
that's not so good.
No, and then obviously the cars bundle. So Stroll was out in Q1, joined by Magnussen, the two Saubers, and obviously Ricciardo had the retirement. And then that was about it for quali. But when we look at the switch over to the race, it was a walk in the park for Hamilton. 14 seconds in the end over Bottas, and it probably would have been more if he had have actually pushed all the way through. So
it's ominous for the rest of the season, actually.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Luce?
What, on Mercedes form?
Yeah.
There's still a way to go. Hungary for me is the most crucial race of the season. If Ferrari are able to be competitive and win the race or get second and look like they can win the race, we're in for a championship. If it's a Mercedes fest, the season's over, because that's a track that, with the shorter wheelbase that Ferrari have, they should be more competitive there. Obviously, there's a bit of tyre wear there, so it'll bring that into effect for them, even though they had issues here with it. And then after that, they've got two races where Mercedes, barring failure, will win.
Yeah, it's looking ominous. The tyre failures that Ferrari had have really cost them. If it continues like it's going, I feel like they could have maybe arm wrestled, just struggled across the line for a drivers' championship at least. But because he's lost his advantage, and they're likely to take more engine penalties, Ferrari, compared to Mercedes, it's going to be a tough one to win from here.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a crucial thing over the next few races, is the fact that Ferrari's going to start taking penalties. I think that's absolutely unavoidable. So yeah, I think that's a.
So I thought they could win the championship in spite of that if they'd kept their form that they've had for the first half of the year, but it looks like it's gone.
Yeah, I do agree with Lusso that Hungary is crucial. Hungary is a track where Mercedes haven't enjoyed domination on. During the hybrid era thus far. If we go to Hungary and the Mercedes looks like by far and away the best car, I think that means that it's probably not going to be as competitive as we were hoping for over the remainder of the season.
I'll put it to you this way: it is Ferrari's most important race in 10 years.
Mate, this is their most important race in 10 years. Yeah. So, but the other thing, of course, is that there may be a dark horse at Hungary, being the kind of track that it is, that it may actually be Red Bull's best chance to actually compete directly with Mercedes and Ferrari for the first time, probably since Monaco. They do say Hungary is Monaco without the walls. So, do you guys rate Red Bull's chances? Starting with you, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I think they're a good chance. If Mercedes can even beat Red Bull as well, that will be an extra sign, I think, that they're going to run away with it. But there's a good chance that Red Bull could upset any fight that Ferrari want to put up, I think. to Mercedes at this track.
Luce?
Well, obviously, Red Bull have been getting closer, but I'm still not entirely convinced they're going to be just fast enough to get in front.
Even around the Hungaroring?
Yeah.
Maybe not over a lap, but maybe in a race.
Yeah, but the problem is that they're going to be behind cars that are faster in a straight line. And
they could do it in strategy.
Yeah, obviously, they've got two drivers that can overtake. So
That's true.
Very true.
And obviously, Ricciardo's had a good run there over the years, so we could see him maybe sneaking a win or a result in, but it would take a fair bit of luck for them to win this race, I think.
Yeah, but the key thing is that even if they're just competing, and they do have it could go both ways here, right? If Red Bull can get themselves in there, and they've got two very, very racy drivers against three drivers in the top cars who are absolutely fighting for a championship, and a fourth guy who's fighting to save his career. So if Mercedes have a little bit of a margin on Ferrari, this could be a terrible race for Ferrari if Red Bull get in front of them and split them. But the same is also true, of course, if Ferrari can get in front of Mercedes, because this is less of a Mercedes, historically less of a Mercedes kind of track, then Red Bull could give Ferrari the breathing space that they lost in Silverstone. Do we think that's a possibility, Luce?
Yeah, I reckon that it could be a possibility. It all depends on who can get their tyres to work the way they want, I think. Obviously, Mercedes with a longer wheelbase might be a little bit more difficult. While Red Bull, I think theirs is even shorter than the Ferraris, I think. Not by much, but I think it's a little bit shorter. So
taking Luce's point there, Greg, we're remembering Hungary will be on the softest of the softest tyres. So is that who do we think that's likely to favour?
Should favour Ferrari, shouldn't it? The softest tyres.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I thought they were the best at managing them.
We haven't been on the softest since... Were they on the softest at Canada?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So...
But that was a completely different track, so you sort of got to gauge it at sort of Monaco, really, and Mercedes just didn't get those tyres to work.
Yeah. Well, obviously, so getting back to the Silverstone result, we saw Verstappen challenging relatively early on, but it was clear that Mercedes and Ferrari had margin over Red Bull at Silverstone. But we did see Daniel Ricciardo come beautifully through the field from dead last, or at least 19th, with Alonso's penalties taking him all the way back to Moscow. That Daniel Ricciardo managed to get himself fifth at the end, sixth without the Ferrari punctures. So that was a heck of a drive from Daniel Ricciardo, who just looks like the form driver at the moment in the field, I think.
Yeah, certainly in a bit of form.
Yeah, he's looking very good, isn't he? I thought he was a bit shaky at the start of the year with that mistake he made in Melbourne, but he's actually still just as good as I thought he was. So,
as an aside to that, after I bring up Ricciardo, and this is something when I was scrolling through some comments today and everything on Reddit and the like, that somebody said, there's no way that Sebastian Vettel can be one of the top 5 or 6 or 7 drivers of all time because of the way Daniel Ricciardo beat him in 2014. And my initial reaction to that was, yeah, fair enough. But then I thought, but how good is Daniel Ricciardo? Like, he may very well turn out to be an exceptional talent himself, and given the car, I have no doubt that he'd be able to win a championship. Of course, his biggest opponent at Red Bull is going to be his teammate Verstappen, but I mean, surely Ricciardo's performances, particularly this year and the string that he's been on, and the consistency that he's had, it surely makes Sebastian Vettel not look so bad after 2014. What do you think of that, Lewis?
Quite a fair point, I think. Obviously, we saw Vettel come off 4 consecutive championships, and then obviously we had Ricciardo come in and beat him. But like, even since then, he's been in cars that aren't capable of winning championships, and whenever there's a sniff of a team that isn't Mercedes in the obviously the before this year, he was always there to pick up a win, and that's a hallmark of a driver that is a great or can be a great. Is that they're there when there's a chance to be had. We had Schumacher did it when he was in average cars. Hamilton did it when he was driving McLaren in 09. Alonso's done it. There's no reason why Ricciardo couldn't be as good as anyone. Couldn't be. He could easily be a world champion. He's just got to get the right car.
How do you rate him, Greg?
Yeah, he's one of the best drivers on the grid right now. Maybe the best.
On what is a strong grid? Very
strong grid with some really exceptional drivers. Actually, no, Alo. I can't help but say that Alo is the best, but no. But he's right up there. Like he's up there with Alonso, Hamilton, I guess, when he's on form. Yeah, I'd rate them as my top 3, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah. So that was just something that occurred to me today. That everybody writes off Sebastian, saying, well, he's not as good as maybe Hamilton because he had 2014 where he got trounced by his teammate. And I was thinking, but Ricciardo was his teammate, and Ricciardo's shown himself to be, if Max Verstappen is the second coming of Christ, that a lot of people seem to believe he is, Daniel Ricciardo is keeping him more than honest, even taking into account the fact that Verstappen's had a rotten run of luck.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was going to say was that Nico Hülkenberg had a very, very good race. Although it's difficult to say because it's difficult to know just how good or bad that Renault is. It seemed to work quite well at Silverstone, but Hülkenberg, I thought the thing about what Hülkenberg did at Silverstone is he picked his battles very, very well and didn't lose time like he risked doing to the Force Indias by battling the likes of the Ferraris and the Red Bulls when they were coming through. And I think that shows a mature driver. And I thought he did it. I thought he had a really, really good race, and in the end he got 6 because of Sebastian's late puncture. And then there was the 2 Force Indias, and for the first time, Ocon actually beat Perez in a straight fight. So, I mean, we've been talking all season about that tipping point, right, Greg? That the time was going to come when Ocon was going to start beating Perez, and maybe that's what we saw for the first time at Silverstone. So, do you think you stand by that? The warning signs are ominous for Sergio?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not quite sure what he can do about it, to be honest. Although, I mean, I don't know what kind of drive they were fighting for. If they were fighting for a Renault drive or some kind of other drive, but
probably not fighting directly, because I'd imagine that Perez is on the radar for Ferrari, and Ocon's on the radar for Renault or Mercedes if Bottas had gone backwards. Having said, Bottas has done a top job this year, so the likelihood of a seat being available at Mercedes next year is all but gone at this point. But Ocon is definitely positioning himself to be the guy to replace the first one to walk out of the Brackley team. How do you rate their battle, Luce?
Yeah, ominous is probably the key word. I think it's starting to come to a point where Ocon's going to probably start. I could see him start beating Perez on a more regular basis, and they're only 9 points apart. So all it takes is for one of them to DNF, and that battle's over, or it's blown wide open.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it looks like Ocon's more likely to grab Force India's first podium of the year than Perez is, and it just feels like momentum's on his side. I mean, I don't really think there's going to be a seat that opens up for either of them next year, the way things are going. I think at this point, the likelihood is that Ferrari will re-sign Kimi for next year. I think Renault is looking increasingly like it will be Hülkenberg and Kubica. And so the likelihood is that Force India will maintain that driver lineup into next year. And that could be the death knell for Perez getting into a top team, really.
I don't understand why Ferrari would have Perez in their sights. I don't get that at all.
I think that's just manager talk from Perez. I reckon that's my opinion anyway. I know it happens a lot in football where managers will come out and say, "Oh, this team's interested in this player just to get a better contract or contract elsewhere." So could just be a bit of that at play.
Although there is usually smoke with fire in Formula One, so it wouldn't surprise me if there is some interest. But I think Ferrari would be gun shy about putting a driver in the other car who would feel the need to challenge Sebastian on track, like in terms of getting their elbows out. And we know that Perez would definitely do that because he's got form.
Yeah.
So Felipe grabbed a point for Williams in 10th. That's right. Stroll actually finished 16th. I thought that he was running right behind Massa, but then he had a second pit stop, or he had a late pit stop, and went backwards, if I remember rightly. Vandoorne missed out on his first points in 11th place. Magnussen and Grosjean had a tough race for Haas in 12th and 13th. Their car didn't seem to work very well at Silverstone. Ericsson had a good race to 14th for Sauber, and then Kvyat 15th, and also responsible for the retirement of his teammate on the first lap. Obviously, there's lots being said at the moment about Toro Rosso re-signing Kvyat for next year. 2 races in a row where he hasn't made it through the first lap cleanly. And if you take into account Azerbaijan, where he drove off the track and then drove back on like the human torpedo, and then he triggered his teammate into a spin. The rumor is down at Toro Rosso, those two don't get on at all. Like,
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what more we can say about Kvyat, guys. I mean, he keeps making mistakes.
I still have faith in him. I still have absolute blind faith in him.
I can't see him lasting another season.
Luce is still sitting there saying, "I've got faith in you, Heinz Harald. You can do it, mate."
Oh dear.
You can still win the championship. You can do it, Heinz.
Is he in his 50s yet?
I still watch Nürburgring 99 and think, "Oh, he's got this in the bag."
and then history bites him in the backside.
And he exits the pits and stops.
Gone. And then there was a retirement for Alo. He ran out of gas, not literally but figuratively, midway through the race. And then Jolyon Palmer, who did not even take the start at his home Grand Prix.
Just bad luck, mate.
Just bad luck.
It was in this case, but
yeah,
what can you do?
So that covers off what happens in a race. I mean, obviously, Mercedes were sort of gifted the 1-2 with Ferrari's punctures. So Pirelli have said that the last I saw, they couldn't exactly identify what had happened to Kimi's tyre, although I can't help but think it had something to do with the blistering, and then like the actual tread came away from the compound. Is particularly the way that it was around the inner ring of the where the camber would have been, where the pressure would have been. And we saw a lot of blistering on the tyres. I can't help but feel that Kimi's, whether he ended up with a blister all the way around it, and it actually gave away structurally, and like the tread compound came away. But they are saying that Sebastian's was that he was due to wear. So obviously, if you rewind to 2013, Silverstone was the track where Pirelli had all kinds of problems with tyre explosions.
Yeah.
Was this? What I don't know. What do you think? It was quite specific that it happened only to Ferrari. So do we blame Ferrari or do we blame Pirelli? Greg.
Oh, that's a tough question.
Just loaded it up and shot the gun.
You hope the tyres don't fail. Like, I didn't think it was anything exceptionally optimistic that Ferrari did with Seb. It's a lot of laps, but tyres got to hold together.
Bottas did a few laps though too.
He did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what to think about it, to be honest. It's a tricky one. It's one of those things that can happen.
It always seems to be Ferrari though. Remember Austria last year with Seb driving down the straight and had an explosion.
Exploded, yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Came at a really bad time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can put it down too much to Pirelli. Like they haven't had too many problems this year, but
Yeah.
um, it's tricky one to apportion blame.
What'd you make of it, Luce?
Get your tinfoil hats.
Oh, here we go. This will be good.
I reckon Mercedes got on the phone to Pirelli, send a text message out there to do some dodgy stuff with the tyres, I reckon.
They've got form on the dodgy stuff with the text messages.
Yeah, the old text messages,
And
yeah.
the tyres.
And the tyres, yeah. Yeah, illegal tyre tests and all.
Yeah, that's it. They got Paul on the phone. Yeah, mate,
Big fella, it's Todo. I want you to trigger.
Please get the box cutters on Ferrari tyres, please.
Oh, the big man, the fridge. I can't talk. All right. So, and then obviously Red Bull stopped Max because he had enough space behind him, and they were just taking a precaution. There actually wasn't a problem. So if we skip on to the Drivers' Championship now, we can see that Seb still leads by a point. And as I mentioned early on, that's actually the same margin that Rosberg led Hamilton by going into the same race last year. We've spoken already about where we think the championship might go, and the risk that Ferrari have now that they've given Mercedes such a leg up in the championship. I am curious. The gap between Hamilton and Bottas now is 22 points. Can Ferrari's biggest advantage in this championship be the battle between Hamilton and Bottas? What do you think, Luce?
I completely missed that, sorry.
Oh, well done, mate. Greg, what do you make of that?
I'd forgotten about Bottas actually, and yeah, you're absolutely right. He's driving really well, and if Hamilton slips up at any point, he'll, as he's been all year, he'll be on it, and he'll cause Mercedes a few headaches if they end up in a really tight fight with Ferrari. I think it could also help them, It's always better to have more drivers, I guess, theoretically. Increase your chances. Didn't work for McLaren in 2007, but...
So yeah. I guess that the thing that may also help Ferrari with that is the fact that Mercedes have their very strict, we don't choose championship favourites. But that's a very easy position to take when you're dominating the sport and winning every race. It's a bit different when you've actually got a team who is challenging you, and particularly if Red Bull comes along and can start being really competitive in places like Hungary and Singapore. I don't know. Luce, do you think that Ferrari's biggest asset in this championship could be Valtteri Bottas?
It could be. Obviously, we've seen in the past that having one driver in it and having the other team you're battling to, it's obviously, as Greg said, it's cost McLaren in the past. But at the same time, the second driver for Ferrari, he's got to pull his finger out to sort of help as well. Like, you can't just be on...
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Kimi should have been second at Silverstone. So you can't be really critical of Kimi. He had a great weekend, and he was let down by a tyre failure.
It wasn't so much that. It's just that there's got to be rounds where Hamilton's not having a good round, and Kimi Räikkönen's going to have to finish in front of him just to get that extra points, because there's obviously going to be weekends where Bottas is going to be faster than Vettel.
Yep.
And the points gap to Hamilton's going to be even bigger. Even though Bottas himself is right there, he's probably not quite fast enough without mechanical failures to Hamilton or Vettel to quite win it. I don't think.
Yeah, two wins this year. He's doing okay.
I'm not saying he's doing badly. I'm just saying I don't think he's quite got that speed that Seb and Hamilton have displayed so far. Which is, you do need at critical points. Rosberg did have it at times in the last few years, but
Bottas might have the temperament though. He might have an edge over those two, because they both tend to do crazy stuff when under pressure. And Bottas, as you know, as you call him, is a bit of a robot. So
yeah,
he might just have he might just have that killer instinct to take advantage if either of them falter.
And if you wanted to compare him to Nico Rosberg, I think Rosberg had to try very, very hard to ignore the championship last year. I don't think Bottas has to try that hard. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who actually would...
Feel that. Yeah. Because he hasn't had those years of disappointments. So.
I think it also helps that he's not leading the championship. I think with Rosberg being leading the championship for as long as he did, the pressure just built, and it would get at you. While if you're second, you're like, okay, the pressure's not on you. You can probably take a risk or two.
Yeah, well, that's what Rosberg said about Hamilton those last 4 races. He said he was just so good, he was able to drive completely freely, and he just had so much more to give, I guess, in terms of pace. So
yeah,
it'd be hard. It'd be hard if he felt the pressure, and I reckon Bottas would feel it a little bit. But I think in this first year, it's kind of how Hamilton was in his first year with McLaren, where Jensen reckons it was his best year because he was driving freely.
Yeah.
Maybe,
he's sort of naive to it all.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, well, I'll have another crack. This is only my first crack. But I think every time you lose a tight championship, it probably grinds you, I think.
Yeah, it'd eat at you. And I think I reckon that's probably why Rosberg in the end retired. It just ate at him too much. Even though he did win, it was like a weight would have been lifted off his shoulders, but I don't think he wanted to go through it again.
No, that's right. But he probably would have driven better in that second time.
Yeah. So the gap between Ricciardo and Vettel is 60 points. Is it a bridge too far for Ricciardo to drag himself into this championship battle?
With the car he's got, yeah, I think it's a bit much.
Yep. Yeah, I'd agree. And obviously...
Unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, and Kimi's even further back than that. So
I wouldn't worry about Kimi.
Kimi's a non...
it doesn't matter. He could be on for a win, and his car's going to fail, a tire's going to fail, or the team will ask him to pull over. So,
or he'll fail.
He's going to fail.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean that's not. I really feel for Kimi after Silverstone because he did bring it together, and then he had a good weekend, and he had a better weekend than Seb. But it just didn't work out for him. He still got third rather than second, but for somehow you still walk away from Silverstone being disappointed in Kimi. So it's
I just always remember sad face Kimi on the podium.
Sadder than usual face Kimi.
No, he actually had a sad face.
Ah. All right, Max obviously finally got a result at Silverstone where he finished. He got himself there into fourth, and so it was good for him to get that. He was, I guess Red Bull were clearly the third best car at Silverstone. So, but they're definitely closing. Like they're definitely better. I think in terms of the development race, Red Bull's made the most progress from the start of the year. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
And he held Seb up for the majority of that race as well. Seb couldn't get past him.
So you hate his guts. So, Lewis, what do you think?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the Red Bulls are looking a better car.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Red Bull's certainly a better car, but it's still a fair way off.
And Red Bull,
Ferrari and
Red Bull's also got the problem with they're going to start taking penalties as well. So. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we did allude to it much earlier on that the biggest part, I feel like the biggest thing that's going to happen here is that Ferrari could be still getting good weekends, but they're going to start taking penalties, whereas Mercedes are on track to actually not take a penalty for the whole year for component usage, outside of gearboxes, of course. But that's going to be Ferrari's Achilles heel, surely. Like even if they're going into weekends and looking fast, taking a 5-spot grid penalty when you've got the Red Bulls in between you and the silver cars is going to be very, very difficult for Ferrari to overcome it, particularly if Red Bull have improved to the point where they're a relatively close match.
It just depends which circuit, I guess. Like you at Monza or Spa, I guess that you'd sort of buy it. All right, we'll take it there. But if it's somewhere like Singapore or even Brazil to some extent, like you'd be like, it would hurt him quite a bit.
Yeah, I can't help but feel that this more than anything, this championship may end up being decided by Ferrari's excessive component usage compared to Mercedes. What do you think the chances of that are, Greg?
They're very high. You're literally taking the words out of my mouth. I feel like they're going to get to a point where they're going to feel the need to push one of their engines in a session somewhere, or they don't want to take a grid penalty in a certain place, so they'll just push one of their engines just a little bit too far, and it'll end in failure, and then that might just cost them, just that too much.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's sort of the Force India drivers are still neck and neck. As Lou said before, there's 9 points between them, but it does feel like the tide's turning in Ocon's favour. It just feels like he's been closing on Perez all season, and it's natural progression for him to overtake. Sainz obviously didn't get any points this weekend because of his torpedo teammate. Hulkenberg dragged himself back into the top 10. So Hulkenberg's an interesting question because obviously the Force India drivers, Perez has 52 points, Ocon's got 43, Hulkenberg, his first year at Renault, has 26. So he's got half the points of Perez. But surely he doesn't regret the move to a factory team like Renault, even if it doesn't look like a great move at the moment. How would you read that, Luce?
I think it's good in that obviously he's at a factory team, but I think they value him a lot more than what Force India ever did. And I think that sort of trust that they've put in him to sort of be a lead driver obviously pleases him a bit more. And when you've got a happy driver, performs better. And obviously with the sixth place he got at Silverstone, things are looking up. If they can put a decent engine in that car, who knows where he could end up.
Before I throw to you, Greg, I was just going to say, you just said he's the lead driver at Renault. Does he remain the lead driver at Renault?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Now, Greg, what do you make of has Hulkenberg made the right move? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, no doubt in my mind. I think Renault are on an upward curve.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can see that. Bruce raised an interesting point in the sense that Renault probably value him a little bit more, and he's probably very happy. He's probably going into something what Fernando thought he was doing at McLaren, where he's spearheading this. It's not a new project, but it's kind of a revitalized project for Renault.
Yep.
So I think he's happy to just be at a team that has possibility for growth, whereas Force India doesn't have that possibility.
So my other question for just before we move on from Hulkenberg then is where does the Renault car rate? So obviously he's half the points of Perez, so it's clearly not as good as a car as the Force India at the moment. He's 3 points behind Carlos Sainz, but he has more points than both the Williams drivers, even though they're behind him in the constructors because Renault are a one-car team. So, where do you think the Renault rates as a car? Is it ahead of the Williams, about the same? Is it now better than the Toro Rosso? Luce?
Oh, it's better than both those cars. I would rate it maybe just a tick off the Force India. If we're going to compare maybe the car without an engine, like just aero-wise, I reckon the Renault's a better car. But I think it's just lacking in power that obviously Force India have, and they can get away with running, less wing in some, or more wing in some places, while Renault have to compromise a bit. And then obviously there's only one driver in that car.
So how much do you think that would frustrate Renault, Greg, knowing that they've probably got a better car than at least Williams and Haas? They may have now a better car than Toro Rosso, and yet they're behind all three of them in the constructors because they're a one-car lineup at the moment. Do you think that would be bothering Renault? And is that going to influence their decision of maybe acting on Palmer before the end of the season?
Yes. Well, I don't know if you've read Cyril the Big Bull's comments going into Hungary, but he's basically said that Palmer must score points there. So yes, they're definitely frustrated, and I think that's partly why they've looked at Kubica as an option, to be honest. And I think his statement, he said that they wanted to be 6th in the constructors,
Yep.
by the summer, and that they were targeting 5th for the end of the year. And I do think they're on an upward curve. They won't catch Red Bull by the end of the year, but they should. They probably want to find themselves comfortably clear of at least the Toro Rosso, and capable of beating the Force India comfortably on a circuit that's not power dependent, I would have thought. So yes, Palmer needs to start scoring points, but I feel like it's probably over for him anyway.
I was going to say, it feels like the horse has bolted for him, yeah?
Yeah, it does. It does feel like that. Although, admittedly, they've had a lot of reliability problems, and I think they've probably been equally as frustrated with their reliability problems as they have been with Palmer's performance.
Yep. Okay. Well, in terms of the point scorers, Sauber remain ahead of McLaren. We'll get to the constructor standings in a moment, but Alo's still the last of the point scorers. Now, just in regards to Alonso, I think one of the most obvious stories of all time was on motorsport.com today that said that Honda took a lot of penalties at Silverstone in order to give Alonso a great chance at Hungary. What do you think McLaren's chances are at Hungary? It's not a power circuit. They've got what they think is a good car, a good chassis. Do you think that can McLaren get any kind of result at Hungary, Greg? Do you think?
No, I think nothing exceptional that they haven't already gotten at Hungary in the last 3 years. I think if they're very lucky, they could get top 5, but I don't think it's possible, honestly.
Man, for them to get top 5, they've got to beat a Ferrari, Mercedes, or a Red Bull. I mean, yeah, you're right. There's got to be attrition.
There's got to be attrition, but there has been attrition in the last few years. But apart from that, I don't. Maybe they can both be in the top 10, I guess.
Yeah,
but that would have to be the aim. Both to be in the top 10. Maybe
merit.
maybe to be behind the Red Bulls. Both of them be behind the Red Bulls or something.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what they're targeting, but I did hear about that they're taking a bunch of penalties to make Hungary their go-to race, but it's still not going to be easy. Like, they're not up against soft opposition. There'll be the Renaults in there as well. Not quite sure where McLaren compares to Renault, but Renault have at least got a better engine.
Well, yeah, you'd hope.
You still need a donkey to get you around Hungary. You still need the horsepower. So
yeah,
and you still need to get it to the finish line as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see MGUH failure for Fernando or whatever. So,
yep.
It's an interesting race for McLaren.
What do you think, Luce? Can they get something in Hungary, or is it just you don't know why Honda waste their time taking a whole bunch of penalties for Silverstone to maybe grab an 8th place at Hungary?
Well, they might as well take that chance. Obviously, they've not had the greatest of years, and this is a track where, okay, it's not power dependent. If their cars can stay reliable, who knows what could happen. But if Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull don't have any problems, I think that obviously the best they're going to get's a 7th and an 8th or something like that. But obviously they do have, well, you guys call him Jesus. I wouldn't quite put him there yet, but got Jesus in that car. And you never know, he could pull something special out of that.
I don't know if Jesus could get P7 or 8 in that car, to be honest.
Well, this is where we find out. Is he Jesus or
is
he
Alo
just a
could. I don't know if Jesus could, though.
Oh, that's gold. That's getting compared to Alo. That's big news for Jesus.
It is.
All right. Yep.
I don't know if Jesus had won his first Grand Prix at age 22. That's for sure. Youngest winner ever
at this track
until Seb. That's right. Yeah.
At this track did he not lap the field?
He didn't lap.
No, he didn't lap the field, but he lapped.
Kimi Raikkonen was like.
Well,
Raikkonen was like 18 seconds behind him, I think.
Lapping Schumi is practically lapping the field. So.
Well, they had a race.
No, come on now. If you weren't on Michelin tyres that day, you were getting lapped.
That's true. All right, so we've moved on to constructors now. Obviously, Mercedes got maximum points at Silverstone, so they now lead by 55 points. And whilst that's not insurmountable for Ferrari, it does feel like Mercedes are going to probably win this constructors and win it fairly comfortably on the back of the performances of two two drivers performing relatively close to each other, as opposed to Ferrari, which appear to be a 1.5 car team. So Red Bull's very comfortable in third. They can't catch up. They can't get beat. Mathematically, they can, of course, but it's not going to happen. Force India are fourth, and they've got margin now, 44 points from Williams, who are 8 points ahead of Toro Rosso.
Williams will be lucky to be fifth.
I see them staying there.
I expect Renault to take fifth.
Well, it all depends. If Renault stick with Palmer and maintain the Palmer-Hulkenberg lineup, I think Renault will very much struggle to beat Toro Rosso and Haas, let alone Williams, merely because the 6 drivers in those 3 teams are all capable. Stroll's proved himself capable. So the 6 drivers at Williams, Toro Rosso, and Haas are all well capable of getting results, whereas Renault, it's becoming very, very clear that Renault is a one-car team.
Well, it comes down to what Cyril is expecting from Palmer in Hungary.
And is that going to be?
Yep. You never know if Palmer really does not perform at Hungary and Kubica tests well at Hungary, we might see Kubica in that car sooner rather than later.
So before I throw to you, Liz, I was just going to add to that and say that maybe like if Palmer has a poor race again, and Kubica, but surely this is going to come down to how fast Kubica is in the test. If Kubica goes out there and he is fast, like he is, if he's matching it with the guys he's out there with, then surely him being in the car after the summer break is a foregone conclusion at this point. Surely.
It's still a big call, but it's on the cards.
Luce, what do you think? What are the chances?
You got to take the chance.
I know you do, but
with what you've seen obviously in Palmer's car, you've just got to go. He's not given us anything. You might as well just go out there and do it, and if he does well in the second half of the year, it's great. If not, well, we didn't lose anything because we weren't getting anything anyway.
So
he brings a bit of money, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Because Jonathan Palmer's got a heavy wallet. But does putting what sort of effect does it have on the morale of the team when you've got Palmer there who bad luck, full of excuses, doesn't really know why the car doesn't work for him one session to the next, versus putting Kubica, a guy who everybody likes. Like, even when he was still racing, everybody liked him. Is it enough? Is the morale effect it has on the team something that you think would make a beat bowl go, you know what? Look, as you said, Lisa, we're getting nothing from Palmer anyway. If we put Kubica in the car and it doesn't work for him, at least it still puts a rocket up everybody at Enston and everybody in the race team to actually perform better. Or do you look at that and go, but the risk is that he's not quite ready yet, and you actually wreck it for him? Like, how do you balance that out? What do you think, Luce?
Well, the driver himself has got to say, know himself if he's ready or not. Obviously, I think Kubica's old enough to say to the team, like, after the test, if he's physically ready to do it. Like, if he goes out there, does comparable times to what Hulkenberg and the others are doing, and, he feels up to it.
If you believe the simulator, he's faster than Hulkenberg in the same car.
Yeah, but that's a simulator.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I said. That's why I caveated with if you believe the simulator.
Yeah.
What
that could just be talk as well.
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, it's a very difficult decision. I don't know if the team morale is something that will really factor into it. To be honest, it'll just be a byproduct of it. It'll be a nice byproduct, but I think they'll be weighing up whether they're going to hurt Kubica probably long term versus, I guess, can Kubica get them points now that Palmer can't get them, and are those points going to, cover what they're losing from Palmer's contract, I guess, with the money he brings. So it'll be that kind of, I think, a way up option.
So the other question I have out of that then is to say, let's say Kubica's going to be in the car for one of the days of the Hungary test. Let's say that he's not quite there. Like he's just maybe he can't handle the torque of the cars. Maybe he's not. And I've got no doubt he will. But let's say hypothetically that he can't. That Renault aren't comfortable putting him in the car. At that point, do they think of putting, say, Sergei Sirotkin into the other car and taking his sponsorship money,
No.
or will they stick with Palmer? Because
I think they'll stick with Palmer, but Kubica will have another crack for next year.
Yeah. So for next year, I don't doubt it. But for the remainder of the year, because Cyril Abitbol has been building up this pressure on Palmer over the last 3 rounds, right? Like ever since before Azerbaijan, he was like, "No, we're going to stick with Jolyon for the rest of the year." And then all of a sudden, the story changed to, "No, Joe needs to start scoring points. He needs to do it now." So it does feel like that there's this crescendo of pressure building over the top of Palmer. And if it comes to naught, if Kubica tests the car at Hungary and it doesn't go, he's a bit slow, like maybe he doesn't even match Palmer's time, who knows, do Renault then say, well, we did put all that pressure on you, Joe, but it's okay, you've definitely got the seat for the rest of the year. Having a guy in the car who knows that, the likelihood, he's going to be gone at the end of the year. So, or do they go, well, even though it's not Kubica, we need to do something about this, and maybe if we put Sorokin in the car, he'll be a bit hungrier for it. So, how would you look at that, Luce?
Well, who's the other driver they got testing for him at Hungary? Because it's not Sorokin. They've got some other
Renault young guy. What's his name? He's a French young driver. His name escapes me at the moment, but he's not old enough or experienced enough. I don't think he can even get a super license yet.
I see. I was gonna throw my idea out there, and perhaps if obviously if Kubica wasn't up to it, and obviously the other the young fella, the French guy that they're putting in the car, did all right. Maybe they could take a chance on him for a race or two. But
they do have Sergei Sorokin, who's done a number of practice sessions, and he has Rupels in his race suit. So
he does, but at the same time, wasn't he slower than Kubica when they did the testing? Like a month or so ago.
Yeah, in a 2012 car or whatever it was.
It counts.
Yeah,
but if he's slower in that, then he's going to be even you expect him to be even as we've seen this year. Like these cars are a big step up from what any of the cars of the previous almost 10 years have been.
Yeah, well, I did caveat it by saying I don't think it'll happen. I think Kubica will be more than competitive. I think that he'll be competitive against any time that Hulkenberg or Palmer does. Not that I don't doubt the quality of Hulkenberg, because I think Hulkenberg is one of the better drivers on the grid for sure. But Kubica has always been talented, obviously, and he's got nothing to lose. He's gonna be hungry for it. So I can't wait. This is great. If he's in the car after the summer break, I'll be absolutely thrilled. Thrilled for him, thrilled for the sport. Great comeback, and it'd be terrific if he could come along and then immediately be matching the performance of Hulkenberg, and then it does drag Renault forward ahead of Haas, ahead of Toro Rosso, ahead of Williams, and to even have them breathing, by the end of the year, points-wise, breathing down the neck of Force India.
It'd be nice to see them set up as a real powerhouse for next year, to be honest.
I mean, really, it's got potential, that driver lineup, right? Like Hulkenberg and Kubica in a good car is a heck of a driving lineup.
Sounds like a cool team.
Does. All right, well, other than that, there wasn't much in terms of news over.
It was the Renault Fest, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the post Silverstone wash-up, there wasn't that much that came out of it, really. It was all very, very tame and sensible, even with the tyre failures from Ferrari. So we'll wind it up there. We're almost at the hour mark. So obviously we're only a couple of days away from the start of practice for Hungary, and then we go into the month-long summer break. I think we've already spoke at length, but well, I'll come to you guys for final thoughts anyway. Starting with you, Greg. What are you looking out for in Hungary, and do you think it's a pivotal race for the championship, as what Lewis thinks it is?
It's gonna set the tone. Ferrari need to. It'll be interesting to see Ferrari take a bit of the wind out of Mercedes sails going into summer. So it's important in that sense, but it probably won't be as important as whatever race comes along with the penalties that Ferrari will take. I think that'll have more of an impact. But I guess I'll be looking at all those teams that generally don't get good results on power dependent circuits. So Renault, McLaren, those sorts of teams. I'll be interested to see just how well they go.
Yep. All right, Luce.
Well, obviously, like comments earlier, is obviously Ferrari's most important race in 10 or so years, and I think that's true. I mean, this is a big race. Like, we will see if they are contenders or pretenders at this track. Like, if they are able to win or, look like they can win the race and they're right there, then, we could have a decent finish of the championship. But if Mercedes are faster here, then, yeah, it's going to be I think it would be a rather dull end to the year, and it's going to be most likely a Hamilton title.
All right. Well, you heard it here. You heard it here first, folks. That this is a more important race for Ferrari than Brazil 2012 or Abu Dhabi 2010. Sorry, Liz.
They were more underdogs in those races, and their cars wasn't as competitive as what this one is.
Oh, look at this P1 McLaren Mercedes. Of course. We haven't even said it because I think we all hope it's a bad dream. But gentlemen, the Halo for 2018.
No.
The Halo.
Can we just no?
We'll end on that note.
I think University. Thanks P1 McLaren Mercedes for bringing up that nightmare. The Halo is a disgusting device and it should never be anywhere near a Formula 1 car. And I don't think that either of these guys are going to disagree with me.
I don't think any sane Formula 1 fan would, to be honest.
It's bad. Oh, and the other big news from today that I'm not sure if you guys saw, but all 10 teams opted out of buying shares in Formula 1. Not sure if you guys saw that. It was very late.
I did not, and that's very interesting. Why
it is.
Did they do that?
So all 10 teams, the 10 teams who you can't ever usually get into the same lineup for lunch, all 10 of them agree. All 10 of them said not interested in having shares in the sport. So
I guess the teams are being honest for a change. They all admitted that none of them have the sport's best interest at heart.
Yep.
For themselves. They're best to keep their grubby paws off it.
The bargaining chip when things don't go right. Oh no, we're going to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure that is what they prefer, an antagonistic approach to a collaborative one when it comes to the sport being run.
Alrighty, and the last bit of news that makes you rub your chin is the fact that Mercedes also announced today that they're leaving DTM.
Oh yes, they're going to fully commit to Formula E, aren't they?
Yeah, and they said Formula E and Formula 1, but
Formula E, I think, we're going back to this again.
Yeah.
Formula E is the future, unfortunately.
Yes, Formula 1's going to end up being an archaic classic racing series.
That's alright, I'll watch sim racing instead, because at least that'll have engine sounds.
And more dangerous, isn't it? Especially at Road Atlanta.
Definitely very dangerous at Road Atlanta.
It's very dangerous.
Yes, it's very dangerous.
Yep.
Alright, well I think we had some good fun tonight, so thanks very much, lads. And I think we're all good, looking very forward to the weekend, and we'll be back here same time next week in the Hungary wash-up. So bid you all a good evening from the from cold, chilly, sub-zero Canberra and disgusting Geelong. And and we'll catch you guys in a week's time. Bye for now.
See you, lads.